Hostile grounds in Boston. Tough to win there, but he is ready. You'll hear his take on it. Meanwhile, Kyrie knows the onus is on him. This, as he said, is why he's here. Look to bounce back from 4 for 18 in Game 2 to take a lead. We've got a doubleheader of swing games coming up tonight as we get a chance to begin our coverage. Game Time Live. Good to have you throughout the evening, joined by an esteemed gentleman and Brandon Haywood.
Ooh, you were starting to hate off early, I see.
Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas, who was...
see, keep acting up.
I'll get it right
I'm not going to help you climb out that seat after the show's over with.
I mean, look, the way we got into the show behind the scenes while you watched the Open was Josie and the Pussycats, you were humming, and you were talking crap to me, so I like using it. We got a lot to get to. We'll be here during the between portions after the first game. We'll get the coaches and the players and much more on these two in the playoffs. But let's start with big news around the NBA for one of its best people. And look, if it comes down to being a person, Monty Williams is going to be a star everywhere he goes, Zeke. And this is, to me, when you look at the lack of credibility at times with the Suns, right? Isn't this what you want at the helm now?
Absolutely. I mean, they've cleaned up their front office. James Jones did a great job. And then hiring Monty Williams. I mean, this is... You know, when you talk about character, when you talk about person, when you talk about manhood, this is what every NBA player aspires to be, not from a basketball standpoint, but life off the court in terms of who you want to be as a character. I mean, Monty represents everything that a coach is supposed to be, and I just hope that he can bring the best out of his players, you know, out on the floor. We know he'll do it off the floor, but on the floor, you know, I hope he can do that also.
Brendan, 2 years ago at the first ever NBA Awards, he got our Sager Strong Award, and his speech was so moving, so humble, great family, talking about his story. And I know that he's a guy that, because of experiences that you've had, you believe is one of the better people in the game, first and foremost.
Yeah, I definitely believe that Monty Williams is going to be a great coach there. I believe that all the stuff you talked about, Zeke, goes into culture. And he's going to bring a positive culture there. He's going to make sure that everybody knows that they have a job to do. He's going to make sure he treats everybody fairly. But more importantly, he's going to hold everybody accountable. And so I think the Phoenix Suns really, really need that. And then on top of that, like we talked off air, he's just a great person. And I've experienced, he's done some great things for me in my life personally. Things that he didn't have to, because he's never coached me, and he's called me in some tough situations at times. But that just shows you what type of person he really and truly is.
And a great choice by James Jones. We'll be joined by him later in this show, so we will get a chance to talk to him. We look at tonight's schedule. These are two big swing games. I mean, when you think about these two sets, we've seen totally different chapters, right, for each team. The answering the bell in this first game was probably the story of, I think, the playoffs in this round, because a lot of us questioned the Bucks. A lot of people said, I don't know if it's maybe a paper one seed. How would they respond? They responded in a big way. But in Boston, hasn't been very good. You look at the numbers, they speak for themselves. They haven't shot well, they haven't won. So Giannis talks about how they turned that tide here in this series.
They just played really well at home. You know, I don't know if it was the crowd, I don't know what it was, but they just moved the ball real well. They were knocking down shots. They were just amazing at home. So we were able to win a game in the regular season at their place. So, you know, that gives us a little bit of, you know, put us in a good place, you know, mentally. And of course, you know, after the game that we just played, you know, we got to carry over, you know, our momentum and the way we played, and hopefully we can play with the same effort and, you know, have energy, and hopefully we can get a game. That if we do that, we're going to get a game there.
Look, the playoffs, you need the others and supporting cast, but stars got to lead the way. What did you learn about this team and their leader, both in terms of the way he handles himself and on the court, getting tested, having the game one finish, and then answering the way they did in game two heading in now?
I mean, from a leadership standpoint, I mean, Giannis is someone that the team trusts him, whether they play good or bad. You know he's going to come out and give the right type of effort and accept the responsibility of being the good player and the best player on the team. The guy that I was really happy with in terms of his bounce back was Bledsoe. I thought Bledsoe had a really tough first game. He had a tough series against Boston the year before. And having that game two and responding the way he did in game two, said a lot to me about his maturity factor, his growth factor. But I think a lot of it came from Giannis and the way Giannis approached game 2 also, Brendan.
Yeah, Giannis approached the game very aggressively, and you can tell that by the free throw line. 18 free throws, hit 13 of them. He's going to have to continue to be aggressive because when he's aggressive, even though Boston does an excellent job of building a wall, if he gets out in transition, gets downhill, and gets ahead of steam, he now has the chance to break through that wall or make the decision of when it's time to pass to a teammate. He did a good job of that, and either he got an assist sometimes or he got the hockey assist. And it led to Milwaukee shooting tremendously behind the three-point line. They hit 23s, the Milwaukee Bucks record in their last playoff game. So Milwaukee's going to have to hit the three. Giannis is going to have to be aggressive. But if they get that aggressive Giannis that they got last game that wasn't deterred, they have a very good chance of winning this game and breaking through in Boston.
So he was the Night King going through the wall.
I see what you did there. I heard the wall, and I'm like,
it was like he raised Bledsoe, he raised everybody up.
Yeah, but Kyrie's trying to be Arya Stark, so we'll see how that plays out.
It's enough of that. No spoilers. See you Sunday night. Let's talk about Kyrie, because I always say, and this is not a sports thing, but leadership without accountability is just a ship. And most of the time it'll sink because you got to be able to wear it just as much as you're able to kind of embrace the winning side. What did you learn about Kyrie? Not the best game, didn't shoot well, but then afterwards said, hey, look, this is why they brought me here. So that's the mindset of a Kyrie Irving, maybe scary for the opponent tonight in Game 3.
Yeah, he did what he needed to do in Game 1. Game 2 on the road, didn't play well, accepted the responsibility of not playing well. Now, can you have that kind of performance at home? It's different when you have that kind of performance at home and you have a bad road performance. I expect Kyrie to bounce back at home and not have that type of performance that he had, in Milwaukee on the road. When you're out on the road in a playoff game and you have a bad performance, okay, you can stand up and be accountable for that and take leadership for that. However, when you have that kind of game at home, that's a different kind of story. And hopefully tonight he will bounce back. And I think we all expect him to bounce back.
We do expect him to bounce back, but I'm looking past Kyrie. I know what Kyrie's going to do. I've played with Kyrie. I know the work that he puts in. I know the tremendous ball handling and shot making ability he has. The guy I'm looking to see bounce back is Jason Tatum. The first 2 games, I think he has 9 combined points. They didn't really need him in Game 1 and Game 2. Obviously, they needed somebody to step up because Kyrie wasn't hitting shots. So I want to see if Jason Tatum can step up and have that same impact that he had last year in the playoffs. And that'll teach me a lot about him because it was a little bit easier last year because there were a lot of missing pieces. So he got to do whatever he wanted to do. But what will be challenging and will show how truly special he is, can you go out there and get 15 to maybe 18 points in the mix with Kyrie and those other guys and get it within the flow without stopping the ball? He's that type of talent. He just has to find his way. I think Boston's going to need Tatum to step up.
Real quick question, very quickly, but I got to ask you, Zeke, because Tatum, when you look at the onus of a point guard, and Kyrie, and we don't have many prototypical point guards, how much would you feel that to be on your shoulders like a quarterback who's, hey, I got to get that receiver going. I got to get this guy going here at the outset and get him feeling good about himself.
100%. And that, when you talk about leadership and you talk about great players, that's what you do because you take responsibility for yourself, but you also help your teammate out and saying, okay, I see you having a tough time. I'm good enough to get my own, but let me help you out. Let me make sure that I get you going too, and then I can come back and take care of myself. But if both of them are trying to figure out how they get themselves going on from an individual standpoint, then that's problematic. So the point guard, that's his responsibility.
Some of that goes on Brad Stevens also. Maybe run the opening play of the game for Tatum, get him feeling good about yourself. Yeah. You get a couple easy
home crowd,
buckets.
right?
Yeah, you get a couple easy buckets. That home crowd gets behind you. For a young player like Tatum, that can mean the world to him.
It can also be dangerous too, because you run them first couple of plays for him, and everybody in the huddle knows that it's for you, and you miss, and you don't come through. Now your confidence starts to wane.
I like to flow in the positive.
Yeah, why you got to be so negative, man?
Hey, I live in a land of positivity over here.
It hasn't been a land of positivity all year for the Celtics. Nobody's had a better vantage point than Cedric Maxwell. We'll hear from him. He'll join us on his take on Game 3 next. We continue on Game Time Live, presented by State Farm. If you look at the best playoff true shooting percentages, Kawhi just moved into first, passing our next guest. Kawhi Not the 1981 NBA Finals MVP, because I don't know how old he was, probably not very. We get a chance to look at a man who has not aged a bit, even watching this team, as up and down as they've been. Of course, Cedric Maxwell joining us. So let me start with that. When you look at the ups and downs we experienced during the season, how about the bounce-back ability, the resilience of this team, maybe more than most, because they've experienced that seemingly 50 different times during the course of the year?
Really, you have. I think that one thing you were trying to do was you're trying to bring everybody on board, and Gordon Hayward was the guy they were trying to put in the lineup early. It didn't work. Brad Stevenson made a great change. He just started putting other people in, and Marcus Smart was the guy. And Marcus Smart was a guy who did not need the ball, so he made everybody better. Having Gordon Hayward come off the bench, having Jaylen Brown come off the bench, Celtics to me are, I think, the deepest team in the NBA when you're talking about talent from top to bottom.
Max, this is Isaiah. When you talk about talent, I agree with you in terms of their talent top to bottom. But when we go over to leadership, and the Celtics have always been known for having, great leadership within their team, around their organization. Can you talk to me a little bit about what you've seen with Kyrie's maturation in terms of leadership from the start of the season to where he's at now?
You and I talked about that before, and I think it was a game, I want to say it was in Toronto, and we talked about how it wasn't connecting with Kyrie, how everything wasn't going the right way. It seemed like everybody was pulling, going different ways. Kyrie is kind of taking it upon himself in the leadership role, but Isaiah, the thing that we know about him, Kyrie's a different animal. Kyrie's Dennis Rodman. He's a different animal. He understands how to play the game at a high level. He's elite. He thinks, in a different way. But to me, he's the greatest finisher I've ever seen coming into a game when you're talking about the one-on-one thing. But leadership, that is really different when you think about how guys take that mantle on. You did it. We had guys on the Celtics who did it. But Kyrie's different in that way.
Cedric, there was definitely a difference in Giannis from Game 1 to Game 2. What was the game plan, and how did it differ with the Celtics, and how can they get back to that defense they played in Game 1? Because he was incredible in Game 2.
Well, they put up a Berlin Wall, and they made it tough for him. The thing about a guy like that, he doesn't want to shoot from the outside. And what he has to do, his supporting cast has to knock down shots. In that first game, his supporting cast didn't. So you could see more and more pressure on Giannis when he started taking the three-point shot. If there's one thing you want a guy to do, is do what he hasn't done all year. He's not a three-point threat in that way, so you make him shoot it. He made a concerted effort of taking that ball towards the hole, being aggressive each and every play. And when you don't have Baines in there, Baines does a great job of not backing away. One thing I would have seen, me or you or Isaiah, when you see Giannis coming towards the basket, I would have took a step backwards. Baines, on the other hand, takes a step forward, and that to me is pure courage.
When you look, Cedric, at last year going back to this team without Kyrie in the playoffs, Jason Tatum, even as a rookie, proved big shot maker, big-time player, wasn't afraid of the moment. How do we get that demonstrative Jason Tatum back? How much onus is on him? And how much is on Kyrie, despite not being maybe a typical, prototypical point guard like the gentleman in the Hall of Fame to my left, to feed Tatum in the right spots to help get him going?
Well, you want to get an early shot. As you guys were saying, the early shot may be something easy to knock it down. You want to get your confidence going. As a younger player, a lot of this has to be on him. Just get out and play the game the way you played it all the time. The Celtics have not really needed him as much in these couple of series. He'll be okay. And I think what you do, don't put too much pressure on trying to get him involved, but just let the game kind of come to him. You might not need no more than 10 points from him, but you just have to get everybody playing the right way.
When you talk about playing the right way, can you talk about how Kyrie, Hayward, and Jaylen Brown, and even Rozier has played together, very similar to, Dumars, Vinnie Johnson, and myself. We had to find that chemistry. We had to find when to do it or when not to do it. Have they kind of found that in terms of those three, when to go, when to step back, and be comfortable doing it?
They have, and I think you look Jaylen Brown more than anybody. He was in the beginning of the year. He's put in with that 5, and it didn't work. He just when he got the ball, I just got to shoot because I might not get it. Putting him in that second unit, he feels a lot more comfortable. Now he's gotten to the point where he understands when to go, how to go. When you talk about Gordon Hayward's about his health, and really not health in the leg, but more health in the mind, because when you saw him play, you could see that he was thinking the game. Both of you guys know when you have an injury, the first thing you do, you start thinking about it. But when you become healthy, then now the game becomes different, and you just get out and play, and that's what I'm watching with him. Gordon Hayward's just starting to find the rhythm, and if he's playing well, the Celtics are going to be a very dangerous animal, because remember, he was an all-star. The thing about him, though, is you look at it, when he was at his best in Utah, he was a facilitator. He was a dominant guy with the basketball. Now you ask him to have another role right now in Boston because Kyrie is ball dominant.
Cedric, can't thank you enough. Going to be an amazing atmosphere. Enjoy it for game number 3. Appreciate you hopping on. And we talk about the 1981 NBA Finals MVP, Cedric Maxwell. And, guys, you think about this series.
Love you, Max.
We look at it now.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You move forward and you think about Nikola, perhaps.
Ooh, that's a great pass right there.
How about
five
the facilitating to Millsap here? We'll talk about Denver.